Mist rolled over the edges of the village like a soft gray blanket. Each morning, Leora walked along the cobblestone paths, her boots pressing lightly into the dew-soaked stones. The villagers barely noticed her anymore, and that was just the way she liked it. She was careful, quiet, and small in every way that mattered, every way but one. Deep inside her, a shadow waited. A wildness, a power, a wolf that stirred whenever her emotions grew too strong. Leora had spent all her life learning to hide it. She had learned to smile gently, keep her hands soft, and never let her eyes betray the truth of what lurked beneath her skin. Most of the time, she succeeded, but the wolf never truly slept. Her small house at the edge of the village was surrounded by tall, dark trees, their branches twisting like black veins against the sky. Here, she could practice her little routines in privacy, whispering words that calmed her heart, stretching, letting the wild thoughts fade. Outside these trees, in the open world, she was human, fragile, and careful. Inside, she was something else. That morning, she had barely finished her tea when the distant sound of hooves broke the silence. At first, she thought it was a messenger, something ordinary, but then the air shifted. The villagers hurried along the streets, casting fearful glances toward the castle gates. Something had changed. The Alpha King had arrived. King Kalen was a figure of legend. Tales of his strength and cruelty spread across the lands, whispered by peasants in dark corners of taverns. He was said to command the loyalty of the fiercest warriors, to have eyes that could see through lies, and to track the faintest traces of magic. And now he was in her village, and she could feel the wolf stir. Leora did not want to think about the king. She did not want to attract attention, yet she could not ignore the pull in her chest. The sudden, undeniable heartbeat of her hidden power. The wolf was restless. Something about the way the wind shifted carried his presence straight to her senses. When Kalen entered the village, he was not alone. His armor gleamed even in the soft morning light, the metal moving with him as if it were alive. His horse stepped with quiet confidence, a beast that matched him in strength and command. The villagers bowed automatically, whispers running like water along the streets. The king sees all. The king chooses who will live. Kalen dismounted near the fountain at the village center. His eyes scanned the crowd, sharp and calculating. And then, slowly, they found her. Leora felt her breath catch. The wolf growled softly in her chest, warning her, trembling with anticipation. She tried to hide it, tried to melt into the shadows of the market stalls. But it was too late. His gaze did not waver. "You there," he said, his voice carrying over the crowd, smooth and commanding. "Step forward." Every instinct in her screamed to run. She did not. She could not. The villagers held their breath as she hesitated, then stepped onto the cobblestones, feeling every eye on her. The wolf pressed against her ribs, wild and impatient, sensing that the moment had come. Kalen's gaze was sharp, dark as storm clouds. "You have something hidden," he said. Not a question, but a statement. Something that does not belong to ordinary humans. "I can see it in you." Leora's stomach twisted. She swallowed and forced a polite bow. "I am just Leora, my king," she said. Her voice was careful, controlled, as always. Nothing more. Kalen smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. "Do not lie," he said softly. The words were like ice, sliding down her spine. "I can feel the strength beneath your skin. You hide it well, but I can feel it. The wolf in you. Do you think it can remain hidden forever?" The crowd murmured, and she felt every eye on her. Some of them looked afraid. Others looked curious. Her secret, the one thing she had protected with her life, was exposed to the cold light of day. I do not know what you mean," she whispered, her hands tightening into fists. The wolf roared in her mind, demanding to be seen, demanding to be free. She pressed her palms to her chest, trying to calm it. Kalen stepped closer, the ground seeming to tremble slightly under his presence. I do not ask for permission. I do not wait for consent. The wild cannot be denied forever. Not by you. Not by anyone. Her heart raced, a mixture of fear, anger, and a strange, thrilling excitement she had never allowed herself to feel. He was dangerous, yes, and cruel perhaps, but also alive in a way no one else had ever been. He circled her slowly, like a predator assessing its prey. Yet, paradoxically, there was no malice in his eyes, only curiosity, and something, almost reverence. You fear it, he said, pointing subtly at her chest. You fear yourself. But hiding will not protect you. It will only weaken you. Leora shook her head, tears threatening to form. She had spent her whole life protecting herself, controlling the wolf, blending into the human world. And now, in moments, all of that could be gone. The wolf in her stirred, aching to break free, to claim the power that had been denied for so long. Kalen reached out, his hand stopping just short of touching her. The wolf is part of you. And one day, it will demand your surrender. I will not wait for that day. You will not hide from me. Every muscle in her body tensed. The air itself seemed heavier, darker. Somewhere deep in the forest behind the village, a branch cracked, and the sound echoed like a warning. The wolf inside her howled, and Leora felt the pull of it like fire in her veins. But she did not move. She did not run. She stood her ground, feeling the strange and dangerous connection forming between them. She was terrified, yes, but also drawn to him in a way that made her heart ache. Kalen's eyes softened for a fraction of a second, enough for her to catch a glimpse of something behind the alpha mask. Loneliness, vulnerability, desire for a power he could not claim on his own. You cannot hide, he whispered again, his voice low, commanding yet intimate. Not from me, not from your own shadow, and not from the truth you carry. The wolf stirred more insistently. Leora felt the sensation of claws against her ribs, the flick of fur against her skin. It was terrifying and exhilarating. She wanted to run, to control it, to stay human. Yet every part of her that had ever been caged, every part that had ever longed to run wild, stirred with desperate energy. Kalen extended his hand, not to touch her, but to indicate a future she could not yet see. You will learn to walk with it, he said, almost kindly. Or it will consume you. I can teach you control. But first, you must surrender the illusion that hiding helps. The wolf knows its own strength, and one day, so must you. Leora's breath came fast. Her mind raced with fear, desire, and uncertainty. Could she trust this dangerous king? Could she allow herself to be seen? Could she survive the truth of her own nature? And then, as if answering her unspoken question, a low growl echoed from deep inside her chest. She could not deny it anymore. The wolf was awake. The crowd of villagers shifted uneasily, sensing the tension between them. Kalen's gaze did not leave her, dark and unyielding, yet strangely patient. You cannot hide forever, Leora, he said again, his voice like a vow. And I will not let you. A shiver ran down her spine. She wanted to flee, to hide, to run back into the safe quiet of her home. But the wolf would not allow it. She felt it stir, hungry, alive, ready to rise. And in that moment, standing beneath the gray morning sky, Leora realized something terrifying and thrilling. The life she had known, quiet, careful, hidden, was over. The Alpha King had found her, and the wolf would no longer be silenced. The wind shifted, carrying whispers of change, of fire, and of danger. And somewhere deep within her, the wolf growled in agreement. The road to the capital was long and winding, surrounded by dense forests and rolling hills that disappeared into gray mists. Leora rode beside King Kalen, her hands gripping the reins so tightly her knuckles whitened. Every step of the horse echoed her heartbeat fast, tense, uncertain. She had never left her village before. Never traveled beyond the familiar forests and quiet streets that had kept her secrets safe. Now, she was leaving it all behind. Kalen rode a few steps ahead, his dark cloak flowing like liquid shadow in the morning wind. The sun glinted off his armor, casting reflections that seemed almost unnatural, as if the metal itself recognized the power that moved beside him. Leora could feel the wolf stirring, sensing the proximity of strength, danger, and command. "You are tense," Kalen said suddenly, his voice low and calm. Leora flinched. He had a way of speaking that cut through hesitation, like a sharp blade through fog. I am used to quiet," she said softly, keeping her eyes on the forest path. "I do not travel much. Quiet does not make you safe," he said, turning slightly in the saddle to meet her gaze. "Hiding does not make you invisible. You have a strength inside you that is too powerful to ignore." Leora's stomach tightened. His words were like mirrors held up to her soul. The wolf stirred again, impatient, sensing that the Alpha King understood far more than any human should. She had spent years learning to control it, keeping it caged beneath careful rituals and quiet self-discipline. And now, with Kalen's eyes on her, it itched to break free. The journey continued in silence, broken only by the sound of hooves against the dirt road and the rustle of leaves in the wind. The forest seemed alive, almost aware, shadows moving like dark spirits along the path. Leora felt the wolf grow restless, stretching and straining, testing the boundaries of her restraint. She clenched her fists and focused on her breathing, wishing she could return to the simple control of her village. Kalen finally spoke again. "When we arrive, you will learn to walk with it," he said. "Not as a pet, not as a weapon, but as a part of yourself. You cannot hide what you are, Leora, and I will not allow you to try." She flinched at the use of her name. Nobody had ever said it aloud with such certainty, such command. The wolf inside her growled softly, sensing the tone, recognizing the dominance in his voice. For the first time, she did not resist. She could not. The capital loomed ahead, a city of towering stone walls and spires that pierced the gray sky. Banners fluttered in the wind, the royal crest, a wolf's head entwined with a crown, displayed on every tower. Even from a distance, Leora felt her pulse quicken. The city was alive with energy, dangerous and intoxicating. Kalen dismounted with fluid grace and extended a hand toward her. "Come," he said. "Your training begins now. The wolf in you will not wait for permission. It demands to be seen. You will learn to control it, or it will control you." Leora hesitated. Fear and curiosity warred within her. She had lived her life in hiding, mastering every gesture, every glance, every heartbeat to keep the wolf dormant. And now, someone wanted it to rise, to embrace it, to wield it. She took a shaky breath and placed her hand in his. The castle was massive, built of gray stone with towers that reached into the clouds. The hallways were long and shadowed, the walls lined with tapestries depicting legendary battles, fearsome creatures, and kings who had ruled with both wisdom and terror. The scent of burning torches and polished stone filled the air. Leora felt small, yet the wolf inside her stretched, sensing a new territory, a new realm of possibility. Kalen led her to a chamber high in the northern tower. The room was sparsely decorated, with only a wide window overlooking the forest and a sturdy wooden training area. "This is where you will begin," he said. "You will learn to control the wolf, to channel it. Fear will not serve you. Anger will not serve you. Only understanding and discipline." Leora nodded, swallowing hard. She had never imagined someone would demand so much from her, yet also recognize her worth. The wolf inside her growled softly, a mixture of excitement and uncertainty. "First," Kalen said, stepping closer, "you must face the fear that hides in your own heart. The wolf knows when you are afraid. It will push back. It will test you. And I will test you too." She looked up at him, heart pounding. I I am afraid, she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. But I do not know if I can control it. Kalen's eyes softened for the briefest moment, then hardened again. Control is not about suppression, it is about understanding. You must let it speak, let it move, and yet remain yourself. If you lose yourself, the wolf will consume everything, including your heart. He gestured to the open training floor. Leora took a deep breath, feeling the wolf stir, stretching beneath her skin like a spring ready to snap. She focused on her breathing, on the rhythm of her pulse, and stepped forward. At first, it was small movements. The wolf whispered in her mind, testing boundaries, nudging her to run, to leap, to fight. Leora resisted, keeping her movements controlled. Kalen watched silently, his presence like gravity, pulling both her fear and her focus into alignment. Then, a sudden flicker of instinct, a shadow moving outside the window made her heart leap. The wolf surged, a flash of silver and fire, pressing against her, demanding release. She stumbled backward, almost losing control. Kalen's voice cut through the storm of her mind. Breathe, Leora. Trust yourself. Trust the wolf. Not blindly, but with understanding. It is not your enemy. She froze, focusing on his words. Slowly, carefully, she allowed the wolf to move, to flow through her senses. The air sharpened, the shadows stretched, and the strength of the wolf moved through her limbs like wildfire tempered by ice. She felt power raw, untamed, magnificent. And for the first time, she did not fear it. Kalen nodded approvingly. Good. You are beginning to see. The wolf is part of you, yes, but it is not all of you. You are still Leora. You are still human. And in that balance, you will find strength that even kings fear. She felt the wolf recede slightly, a satisfaction in its growl. Her body trembled with the thrill of new power, a mixture of fear and exhilaration. The room seemed charged with energy, shadows dancing along the walls like living creatures. You will train each day, Kalen said, his tone unwavering, and each day, I will push you further. You will learn to harness the wolf. Not for me, not for the crown, but for yourself. Only then will you be whole. Leora nodded again, her mind racing. She felt excitement she had never allowed herself to feel before. The wolf inside her was still restless, but now it was a companion rather than a threat. For the first time, she imagined herself not as a prisoner of her own fear, but as a master of her hidden strength. The sun began to set behind the castle towers, painting the sky in streaks of gold and crimson. Kalen stepped closer, his shadow merging with hers. The wolf is awake now, he said softly, almost a whisper. And so are you. The real challenge begins tomorrow. Are you ready to face it? Leora took a deep breath. She was terrified. She was exhilarated. She was alive in a way she had never been. And yet, deep in her chest, a part of her trembled, sensing that awakening the wolf had consequences she could not yet see. I am ready, she said, her voice firmer than she felt. Kalen studied her for a long moment, his gaze piercing. Then he turned toward the window, looking out over the forest that stretched endlessly beneath them. Good, he said finally, because hiding is no longer an option, not for you, not for anyone who dares to seek what you are. Outside, the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. Somewhere in the forest, shadows moved, and the wind carried whispers. Whispers of power, of freedom, and of challenges yet to come. The wolf stirred once more, sensing both danger and opportunity. Leora pressed her hands to her chest, feeling the pulse of life and wildness inside her. She had taken the first step into a world she had never imagined, a world of power, danger, and awakening. And standing beside her, the Alpha King waited, watching her rise and testing just how far she could go. The night deepened, and the castle seemed to hold its breath. Leora knew one truth above all. Nothing would ever be the same again. The castle walls were colder than Leora had imagined, even after days of sunlight and travel. Every corridor seemed to stretch longer, shadows curling in corners like living creatures. The deeper she went, the more she understood that the castle was not only a home, but a prison, and yet, paradoxically, a place of awakening. Kalen had been relentless in his training. Each morning, before the sun rose, he brought her to the open training yard on the northern terrace. The wind whipped around them, carrying with it the scents of the forest below and the distant mountains beyond. Here, there were no walls to hide behind, no comforting darkness to mask the wolf, only the cold stone beneath her feet, the sky above, and Kalen watching her every movement. Fear weakens control, he told her one morning, his voice carrying over the wind. And yet fear is natural. You cannot erase it. You can only recognize it and use it. Understand it. Accept it. Leora clenched her fists, feeling the wolf pulse beneath her skin. Every day, it pushed, impatient, demanding release. She had begun to sense its strength as part of herself, rather than a separate entity to hide. Yet every time she let it stretch too far, she feared she would lose herself entirely, and Kalen would see her not as a student, not as a partner in this strange journey, but as a danger to control. He approached her, eyes like steel but tempered with something softer, almost human. "You are stronger than you believe," he said, "stronger than your fear, stronger than your doubts. The wolf does not make you less, you make the wolf part of what you are. Only then will you become truly unstoppable." The wolf stirred in agreement, and Leora felt its energy rushing through her veins like a current. She closed her eyes for a moment, breathing deeply, letting the rhythm of her heartbeat align with its wild pulse. Slowly, she extended her senses outward, feeling the wind shift, hearing the rustle of distant branches, sensing life in every corner of the forest below. "You are learning," Kalen said, stepping back. "But you are not yet complete. There are forces in this world that will test both you and the wolf, and you must be ready." Days passed, each filled with rigorous training and careful control exercises. Kalen's methods were harsh, precise, and unyielding. Yet Leora began to understand his intent. He did not seek to dominate her but to push her to embrace herself fully. She had spent her life hiding, afraid of rejection, punishment, or destruction. Here, she was learning to stand in her own power without shame or fear. One evening, the castle corridors were unusually quiet. Leora had been practicing alone, honing her senses, feeling the wolf sharpen her instincts. She moved with grace, each step deliberate, each motion a balance of human control and primal power. Then came the sound of footsteps, light, deliberate, yet heavy with intent. She froze, listening. Someone was approaching. The wolf growled softly in her chest. Alert. Sensing danger, Kalen appeared in the doorway, his expression unreadable. "You are improving," he said, voice low. "But there is more at stake than mere control. There are those who wish to exploit what you are. Those who will try to turn your strength into a weapon for their own power." Leora's pulse quickened. She had suspected it, rumors of enemies in the court, whispers of a coup, rivals who feared Kalen's authority. But she had never imagined that she herself could be a target. "What must I do?" she asked, her voice steady despite the tremor of anticipation. "Trust yourself," Kalen replied. "Trust the wolf. And trust me. In the way you must. Not as a master, but as a guide. You are more than the sum of your fear. You are more than the shadow you hide behind. But you will have to prove it. Soon." That night, the castle seemed to shift. Leora lay in her chamber, listening to the creaking walls and distant echoes of footsteps. She had grown used to Kalen's presence, yet the wolf remained restless, urging her to move, to act, to be ready. Suddenly, a scream echoed through the halls, a sound sharp, urgent, and full of fear. Leora bolted upright, the wolf leaping inside her with unrestrained energy. She did not pause to think. She was already moving, her senses extending beyond her body, hearing, smelling, sensing danger before it arrived. She followed the echoes to a courtyard, where a courtier, cloaked and masked, had cornered Kalen's advisor. The man was weak, unable to defend himself against the courtier's malicious intent. The wolf surged, forcing Leora to act before she could calculate the risks. She leaped forward, instincts guiding her, strength flowing like wildfire. The courtier turned, startled by the sudden movement, and Leora's wolf revealed itself in a burst of power. Silver light seemed to shimmer in her eyes, her movements precise and lightning fast. The courtier stumbled, then fled into the shadows, leaving the courtyard empty except for her and Kalen's advisor. Kalen arrived moments later, moving with his usual calm yet commanding presence. He assessed the scene quickly, then turned to her, expression unreadable. "You have begun to understand," he said, "but there is a difference between power and mastery. You have strength, but you must learn control. Otherwise, the wolf will be a weapon used against you." Leora's chest heaved. She felt exhilarated, terrified, alive. For the first time, she realized that the wolf was not her enemy but her ally, and for the first time, she felt a strange closeness to Kalen, sensing that he understood not only her fear and power but the loneliness she had carried for so long. The next days passed with more training, more challenges, and more subtle lessons. Kalen would push her, testing her limits, but he also observed her quietly, noting every movement, every breath, every flicker of hesitation. Slowly, Leora began to trust him, not fully, not yet, but enough to let him guide her through the awakening she had long denied. Yet even as her confidence grew, a shadow loomed over the castle. Rival nobles, jealous of Kalen's strength, had begun to plot. They saw Leora not as a person, but as a prize, a weapon, or a threat. Rumors whispered through the halls like poison, and the wolf inside her sensed it all. One evening, as she practiced control in the training yard, a messenger appeared at the gates, a sealed letter, bearing a symbol she did not recognize. She felt the wolf tense immediately, the hairs on her arms standing. Kalen took the letter and read it, expression darkening. "They are moving against us," he said quietly, voice edged with warning. "They seek to capture you, to exploit what you are. You must be ready." Leora swallowed hard, feeling fear prick at her chest. Yet the wolf pressed forward, urging her to stand firm. For the first time, she felt a balance, human and wolf working together, guiding her, giving her strength instead of fear. The night deepened, and the castle held its breath. Shadows moved in corners, whispers filled the air. And Leora knew that her life had changed irrevocably. She had begun to awaken, to embrace the power she had hidden for so long. And yet, with that awakening came danger she had never anticipated. Kalen approached her then, close enough for her to feel the heat radiating from his body. "You are stronger than you know," he said softly, almost a whisper. "But strength alone will not protect you. You must learn to trust the wolf. And you must learn to trust yourself. Only then can you survive what is coming." In found one of the car, Leora looked into his eyes, seeing both challenge and understanding there. She felt the wolf pulse beneath her skin, restless, alive, insistent. She had begun to taste freedom, the power she had hidden her whole life. And yet, she knew the path ahead would not be easy. As the wind shifted through the courtyard, carrying the scent of distant danger, Leora understood one undeniable truth. She could not hide anymore. She could not run. She could only face the coming storm, her wolf, the Alpha King, and the enemies who lurked in the shadows. The night was quiet for a moment, almost serene, but the calm was deceptive. Somewhere in the castle, in the shadows beyond sight, eyes watched, waiting. Leora pressed her hands to her chest, feeling the pulse of life and power. The wolf growled, sensing the approaching threat, and she felt a strange thrill, terror and anticipation intertwined. For the first time, she realized she was no longer just Leora, the girl who hid her secret. She was Leora, the wolf, the hidden strength that no one had dared to awaken until now, and the true tests were only beginning. The forest beyond the castle loomed dark and endless under the moonlight. Leora stood at the edge of the training yard, her senses alert, her wolf fully awake inside her. The wind carried whispers, some of warning, some of promise, and she felt every leaf, every rustle, every shift in shadow. The night held its breath, and she felt the weight of what was coming. Kalen approached silently, his armor faintly gleaming under the pale light. He stopped beside her, his presence steady and commanding, yet there was softness in his gaze, a mixture of respect, trust, and unspoken care. "They are coming," he said simply. "You will not face this alone, but the wolf, you must let it lead you." Leora inhaled deeply. Her chest pulsed with energy, and the wolf stirred, stretching through her like wildfire tempered by ice. She had trained, fought, and learned to trust herself and her hidden strength. But this was different. This was not practice or play. This was survival. From the shadowed forest, shapes began to emerge, masked figures, armed with blades and dark intentions. The rival nobles and their mercenaries had arrived, seeking to capture her, to exploit the power they did not understand. The wolf inside Leora growled, low and fierce, answering the threat before she even had to move. Kalen drew his sword, the blade glinting in the moonlight. He moved with a predator's grace, precise, measured, and deadly. Leora felt the wolf surge forward, instincts sharpening her senses, her reflexes, her strength. She was no longer merely human. She was human and wolf, together, balanced, unstoppable. The first figure lunged, blade raised. Leora shifted, letting the wolf guide her movements. She sidestepped, her body moving faster and more fluid than humanly possible, her reflexes instinctual, her strength precise. The attacker stumbled, startled by her speed, and Kalen intercepted, his sword flashing like lightning. Every movement was a dance, wolf and human, Kalen and Leora against the tide of danger. The forest echoed with the clash of steel and the growls that rose from Leora's chest, a sound both terrifying and beautiful. She felt exhilaration and fear in equal measure. But the wolf whispered assurance. They would survive this, together. Kalen's voice cut through the chaos. "Remember, control. The wolf is part of you, not all of you." Leora nodded, focusing on the rhythm of her heartbeat, the flow of energy, the pulse of strength inside her. She could feel the wolf's power in her limbs, its keen senses guiding her, sharpening her mind. But she maintained her human will. She was no longer hiding. She was no longer afraid. The enemies faltered. They had underestimated her. They had not counted on the strength of a human who had embraced her hidden power. A wolf who moved through her like shadow and flame. Every attack they launched was met with grace, precision, and strength. Then, from the deepest shadows, a new figure emerged. Cloaked, masked, radiating authority and malice. This one did not move like a human. Leora sensed something darker, older, more dangerous. The wolf within her growled, a warning that reverberated through her very bones. Kalen stepped forward, his sword raised, eyes sharp. "Stay behind me if you must, but do not hide your power," he said, voice steady, commanding. "Face this with me, or we both fall." Leora stepped forward, feeling the wolf surge in agreement. She did not hesitate. The danger before them was immense, yet she had faced fear and mastered it. She was human and wolf, together, balanced, strong, alive. The figure attacked, dark energy flaring from its hands, twisting the shadows into sharp, threatening forms. Kalen parried and struck, moving with lethal precision, but the power of this enemy was immense. Leora felt the wolf surge forward, instincts guiding her. She leaped, sidestepped, and countered, striking with strength and speed that startled even her adversary. The battle was intense, every second, stretching into eternity. Kalen fought beside her, each movement coordinated, each attack and defense, a reflection of trust and understanding. The wolf guided her, sharpened her senses, and yet she remained herself strong, fierce, determined, aware. At a critical moment, the enemy lunged toward Kaelin. The wolf inside Leora roared, and she moved instinctively, intercepting the attack, shielding him. The force of her strength sent the enemy staggering backward. Kaelin glanced at her, a mixture of awe and admiration in his eyes. "You are ready," he said, almost quietly, though his words carried the weight of truth. The fight reached its climax. The dark figure's strength was formidable, but Leora's human intuition, combined with the wolf's raw power, made her unstoppable. Kaelin moved with calculated precision, striking at openings she could sense but could not see. Together, they were perfect human, wolf, and alpha king, united against a common threat. Finally, with a coordinated effort, Leora and Kaelin struck. The dark figure fell back, defeated, dissipating into the shadows from which it had come. Silence descended on the forest, broken only by their breathing and the distant rustle of leaves. Leora lowered herself to her knees, heart pounding, body trembling with adrenaline and relief. The wolf inside her calmed, stretching and settling. Satisfied. For the first time, she felt whole human, wolf, and herself in perfect balance. Kaelin approached her, reaching out a hand. She took it, letting him help her to her feet. His gaze was intense, but softer than before. "You did not hide," he said, voice low. "You embraced it. You are stronger than anyone could have imagined, including me." Leora looked into his eyes, feeling a connection that went beyond words. There was trust, respect, admiration, and something deeper. Something neither of them had dared to name until this moment. The wolf inside her stirred, sensing the bond, acknowledging it. She had been afraid to reveal herself, afraid to trust, afraid to be seen. And now, standing here with Kaelin, she realized fear had no power over her anymore. They walked back toward the castle, the moonlight guiding their path. Leora felt the wolf within her in harmony with her heartbeat. No longer a separate force to hide, but a part of her strength, her courage, her identity. She was no longer the girl who lived in shadows and fear. She was Leora, the wolf, the woman, unafraid. Kaelin's presence beside her was steady, commanding, protective. But it was also a partnership. He did not dominate her. He did not control her. He recognized her power, her independence, her worth. And she recognized his. Together, they moved through the night, a union of strength and trust, understanding and respect. Inside the castle, the corridors seemed less intimidating. The shadows did not feel threatening anymore. They were witnesses to her growth, the echoes of her transformation. She moved with confidence now, fully aware of her power and her place in the world. Kaelin stopped near the northern tower, looking out over the forest. "You have faced the wolf within," he said. "You have faced those who would use you. And you have not faltered. But this is only the beginning. There will be more challenges, more threats. Yet now, you know your strength. And you know that I stand beside you." End quote. Unrealm. You know that I stand beside you. Leora felt a warmth she had never felt before. Safety? Perhaps. Trust? Definitely. And something else, a deep connection. Something unspoken but undeniable. She reached out, brushing her hand lightly against his, feeling the weight of his presence and the steady reassurance of his strength. "I am ready," she said softly, voice steady and sure. "Whatever comes next, I am ready." Kaelin smiled faintly, the kind of smile reserved for rare moments, unguarded and honest. "Good," he said, "because hiding is no longer an option. Neither for you, nor for what you are becoming." The night was quiet, the stars shimmering like scattered jewels across the dark sky. Somewhere deep in the forest, the wind carried the faintest howl, a reminder that the world was vast, wild, and full of mysteries. Leora listened, feeling the wolf pulse in harmony with her own heartbeat. She did not fear it anymore. She embraced it. Together, Leora and Kaelin stood beneath the moonlight. The wolf and the king united. Shadows shifted around them, but they no longer felt threatening. They were part of the story now. Part of the legend of a woman who had spent her life hiding her wolf and the Alpha King who had forced it out. They would face the world together. Human and wolf, king and warrior, side by side. And though challenges still waited, Leora knew one undeniable truth. She was no longer hiding. She was alive. She was free, and she was powerful beyond measure.